I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Katie, will you perform roll call, please?
Sure. Councilwoman Gotchall?
Here.
Councilman Duran? Councilman Jackson?
Here.
Councilman Looper?
Here.
Councilwoman Camp?
Here?
Councilman Tucker?
Here.
Mayor Nichols?
Okay, so Mayor Nichols and Councilman Duran are both out on vacation, so can I entertain a motion to excuse them?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so a motion was made by Councilman Looper, seconded by Councilman Jackson, to excuse Mayor Nichols and Councilman Duran. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order, starting with the consent agenda. So under letter A, we have the approval of minutes from the February 25th, 2025 regular council meeting, the approval of minutes from February 26th, 2025 special council meeting, letter C, approval of bills through March 6th, 2025, in the amount of $381,964.17. Letter D is the approval of the EDAC's recommendation to appoint Deborah Fitch to fill the member-at-large position until September 2025 on the Economic Development Advisory Council. And letter E, approval of the EDAC's recommendation to appoint Edie George to serve a 2-year term as an alternate on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. And it says beginning, but there's no date there. So Shannon, do we? Monday. Okay, so 3/17. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Looper, a second by Councilman Tucker. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, Deborah Fitch is here tonight.
Okay,
If, I didn't know if you folks wanted to meet Deborah, or did you have any words you wanted to say?
come on up.
Come on up here, Deborah.
Yeah,
Deborah, so people online can hear you.
we're gonna really put you on the spot now.
Hi, Deborah Fitch. It's nice to meet everyone here, and thank you very much for the nomination, and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next we have item number 2, the agenda. Letter A, approval of the agenda for March 11th, 2025, the regular council meeting.
So moved.
Sorry.
That's okay, Michelle. I have some changes. We need to can we pull item F from the other business? And because Police Chief Cochran is not here.
Actually,
and
we're gonna leave item F.
We're gonna leave it?
We're gonna remove 10A.
Gonna leave 10A. Okay, sorry. Let's remove 10A. The staff report part of it. Okay, got that. And then can we add, under other business, G, an action to consider and approve a letter of support for the U.S. Department of Transportation's Rural and Tribal Assistant Pilot Program grant in the amount of $700,000 for the purpose of master planning for commuter rail stations from Oak Creek to Craig. The grant has no match, and Routt County would be the grant administrator.
Second.
So Councilman Gotchall, are you okay with all of
Yes,
those
I am.
changes? Okay.
Sorry,
And
Randy.
then-
That's
nope.
good.
And then seconded by Councilman Jackson.
So, Councilwoman Camp, we have to vote to amend the agenda,
Okay.
and then they'll vote to approve the amended agenda.
Okay. So, okay.
So I'd give it to
basically
maybe
just kinda back
Councilman-
up?
Yeah,
So I think
Okay.
Councilmember Looper voted to amend the agenda.
Okay.
yeah.
So is there a second to amend the agenda?
Second.
Okay. So Councilman Jackson. Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Looper and a second by Councilman Jackson to amend the agenda to add a letter G under the public hearing, and then to remove item 10A under the staff reports. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we need a motion to approve the agenda as correct, or as amended.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Councilwoman Gotchel, we've got a second by Councilman Jackson. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I was going to talk initially about the base rate discount program, and I think I'll have Mindy Elliott introduce the kickoff for the application and the initiation of the program. So, Mindy?
Okay, there's going to be a notice in the newspaper tomorrow that explains the program, the criteria, and the documentation that will be needed. The forms are going to be available starting on March 18th here at City Hall or on the website. So people can come in, we're going to get those all filled out. Since we do have a cap limit of 340, we are going to time and date stamp all the ones coming in to make sure that everybody has the same opportunity and it's a fair process. And I think that's all I can think of. The website and the newspaper will also have contact information if they need to call the finance department or email, and we can get their questions answered. But that will be the kickoff for it, for the forms, and then the actual discount will take place July 1st, which will appear on the invoices that go out at the end of July.
Thank you. Also, I have another guest speaker tonight as part of my report. Robin Shepard is with us. I wanted to talk a little bit. Did everybody have a chance to look at the Wayfinder proposal that Robin put together? So I thought if we could just talk about that here a little bit. Robin is the principal of Wayfinder Strategies, and she's agreed to come tonight just to kind of talk about how she prepared the proposal, obviously with coordination with some of the input that I provided to her. But the proposal is draft. It has opportunities for improvement or changes or amendments before we get into it. And it outlines the basically 2 separate days of facilitated review that she is proposing. That's maybe a little different that we had initially talked about, but if we're looking at trying to have a thorough discussion on each of these priorities, and of course those priorities can change, the order can change based on the proposal that you've seen. But we'll be looking at 2 5 to 6 hour facilitated events or retreats, and look at key priorities and soliciting, eventually working towards soliciting a firm for the comprehensive plan in 2026. I mean, this is kind of preparation for that piece of it. And attending those meetings would be, of course, the city council, but we're looking at key staff members. I think that's going to be important. We're really looking for council direction on the priorities, and staff is there to back you up with information and technical support for the different priorities. We're also looking at the potential for subject matter experts to attend in certain areas where we might need to have OLC with the Aquatic Center or engineers for different aspects of some of the projects that we're talking about. Dates, Robin has said that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, Robin, but after the 8th of April, And I was looking at the week of the 14th and the week of the 21st for each of the two April. This is in April, week of the 14th and the week of the 21st. If you could look at that, I'll probably soon have Sierra or Melanie try to coordinate dates with the council and with Robin and, of course, the staff members, and see if we can hone in on that. Tonight, if you think that we should do it differently, if you think there's things that we should hear about the how the proposal is currently laid out and changes we should consider, please let us know that. And of course, or in the next few days would be great. Robin, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just give us a little bit of a recap of what you've put together and your background, please.
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much, Peter. So, hi, everyone. My name is Robin Shepper, and I have had the pleasure of working with Peter and some of the department heads a few years ago. I led a training with Colorado Mountain College, and we were working with the department heads of how to improve leadership in each departments. So I feel like I know a fair amount, not everything, obviously, but I've had a great experience with your department heads and your city manager. So again, my name is Robin. I've been in the region for about 13 years. I live in South Routt, in Routt County. And I have worked with numerous organizations, anywhere from the Yampa Valley Community Foundation to Routt County to national organizations doing retreats. And it would be an honor for me to work with you all to put together a 2-day retreat to talk about your main issues. And really what you'll see in the proposal, I'll just give a really brief overview. I do a lot of these, and what I have found is that the meetings and the retreats are important, but the preparation for the retreat is just as important. So what I'm suggesting at the beginning, which would take the bulk of my time, and that would be really later this month and in early April, is doing some, what I would say, a survey, like a regular Google survey, so that we could get all of your opinions, you on city council, but also the department heads. I find that at retreats, invariably, there are people that speak more than others. And I find that as a retreat leader, it's important for me to get everybody's input. So I do a confidential survey of everyone, and I would work with Peter on the questions that we'd ask in the survey so that we would get your input. And then I like to follow up also with a confidential phone call, or we can do a Zoom call, whatever works. I know that everybody's really busy, so that I have a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities that you all see in Craig, so that I can design the agenda and the day in a way that's going to be the most productive and really understand your expectations and your measures of success for that retreat. So there's really 3 parts. There's this research upfront work, then there's the actual retreat, the agenda, facilitating the retreat, and working with the subject matter experts. And then after the retreat and from the survey, I would write a summary document, not a comprehensive plan. Obviously, that's something that you're going to do in 2026. But I would write a summary document that highlighted the major themes or actions or ideas that you all come up with in the retreat, so you have something to work with to help you base your decisions on moving forward. And so that's kind of the 3-part process that I've worked with many organizations to do, and it seems to work very well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Do you have any other questions for Robin while we've got her on the line?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Was that a question?
Nope, I was just checking to see if any of the council members had any questions for you.
Oh, sorry.
None for me.
Okay.
You know, some of the topics, Mayor, are things like the Craig Housing Authority the strategies that we've employed. What strategies should we actually be considering in the future? We've already had some contractors come to us here locally. They want to redevelop certain properties here in town for housing, and do we get involved in those projects, and do we utilize the criteria, of course, that we've already passed within the code? Whether it's a 5 or 6-plex apartment unit that's rehabbed from an old building that's been closed or shut down for some time, and they're looking for different fee waivers or that sort of thing, as we get into deed restrictions on income and that sort of thing, do we consider that, or do we look at, the Housing Authority has some latitude, we could look at those kinds of things maybe differently than we look at them today. The Aquatic Center, the Economic Development, the CURA, the CURA has 2 current plan areas. Do we look at potentially adding a 3rd plan area to the CURA, or is there any further need for expansion of the Urban Renewal Authority within our community? There's some possible opportunities there that we might want to consider. The business park, of course, and we're still in the process of the acquisition process and the potential of approaching a company as a master planner for that project. And, that I think we have to get in depth in some of this information and whether it stays on the priority list or not. I mean, I think that's what the kind of direction and the kind of feedback we're looking for, and you're probably looking to have that kind of input. And of course, the Regional Transportation Authority, the Mountain Rail Project, that's an area where it would probably be good to have 1 or 2 subject matter experts at least discussing, but we do have some planned opportunities for that coming up, so we may not actually require that once we get into the strategy planning session. So if you would think about the 2 days, the different topics that we've kind of outlined here, things that you might want to see differently, please send me an email. I'd be happy to start bouncing those around in this proposal. Certainly look for your input on those items. Okay?
Question, Peter.
Yeah.
Budget-wise, we didn't budget for it. Where are we thinking of pulling $10,000 from? Any ideas at this point?
Well, we have a couple of funds, and I think the council actually has some funds that we could pull from. Yeah.
I wasn't sure. It's more, I think it's great. It's more than I was thinking, but I think that's great. It's just where are we going to pull it from?
Right. We have some contingency funding. If you want to cut this back, we can look at a one-day session and take a little different tact if that's the approach you want to take.
No, I think 2 days would work, particularly if we can use it to work in the 2026 comprehensive plan. It's just more than what I was originally thinking, but
Right.
if it accomplishes what we need, that's great.
Yeah, we have some contingencies in certain funds, and I'll have a specific answer for you on that, because we'll probably have to approve that fund anyway. So,
Thank you.
okay. All right.
Any other questions for Peter? All right.
Okay, just real quick, the chief apologizes. He's in pretty poor shape tonight. He wasn't feeling too good, so he's not here. And the commander was traveling to a post-training over in Fort Collins. So we're going to leave the action item for the special, the STRs, the special response team items on the agenda. And I have some information on that, but I think the chief pretty well outlined that information in his letter to you. I I think that's all I was going to talk about tonight. I had some other things in my report. If you
Only
have
other
any
question I
questions.
have,
Okay.
you had Matt come in and talking to us on the 25th. We're also looking at the RTA coming to us and talking to us on the 25th.
We have two.
We do have two.
We
Okay,
have
I
two
just want to make
workshops
sure
scheduled for
we got
that
both of
night.
them scheduled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Peter?
Okay.
All right. Okay, now we will move into public comment, number 6.
Council
Oh,
reports.
sorry. I wanted to skip over that. Okay, moving on to council reports, number 5. We will start with Councilwoman Gossel.
I don't have a lot to report this week. I attended the special meeting on February 26th, and then I was able to attend an update from Melanie on the river and Woodbury projects on March 6th. And that's all I've had the last couple weeks.
Councilman Jackson?
Yep, attended a few events, but my meetings are a little bit later.
Okay. Councilman Tucker?
Attended the Yamp Valley Golf Association meeting, discussed probably opening in maybe the next 2 weeks because of the weather, weather dependent, I guess. And then, discussed, and also the restaurant will be opening too at the same time. We're having some issues with the septic system out there, which runs from the golf course over to the airport. So we're gonna try to find some, whatever's going on there. And that's about it. That's one meeting I had, but
Okay.
some big issues.
Councilman Looper?
Had a senior center meeting. They went over their calendar, which is packed with activities. Pretty much they have something going on almost every day of the month. They also are doing the Medicare and Medicaid counseling every day still. And they're using the new kitchen weekly. The new workout equipment is working well. They did a survey in which they had over 76 responses, asked 7 questions, and they had a 9.47 positive response. The only really consistent issues, and those have been fixed, were the roof and the air conditioning. Other than that, they had no negatives, which I thought was interesting. They're up to 242 members as of 2/28, and their goal is to be up to 300 by July. So, and they're pretty confident they'll get to that. Their budget is up to $228,000 this year, with a $6,000 profit. And just to put that in perspective, when they started, they were looking at a $5,000 budget. So in, I think it's probably 10 years at this point. I don't know how long exactly. It's pretty amazing what they have done. Goals that they talked about were basically just to increase communication within the senior center and market more community outreach. I had an MRH meeting. They had a presentation by Infection Prevention Dashboard, and hospital inquired infections as of 2024. They had influenza admissions were the lowest ever. They had a blood bank presentation, and I didn't realize they had a blood bank there. It's part of their lab, which is pretty interesting. They had a population health dashboard, which is the social determinants of health, housing, and transportation. Basically, the main thing affecting the people using population health are housing and transportation. And those are the biggest issues that they're dealing with right now through them. Gross revenues for January were $132 million. Net profit was $475,000. They are authorizing Jennifer to negotiate with Spa Country to sell the lot next to Rapid Care instead of giving them access. So I'm not sure where that's going with that. I had an AG&C meeting. The main things they talked about that affect us was Senate Bill 120, which creates a nuclear workforce development education program to meet future workforce demand in nuclear sector. So if that goes through, that it's pushing the nuclear and education and things that we need, along with providing money for training with that. Another one is House Bill 1040, which is adding nuclear energy as a clean energy resource, which opens up the clean energy financing at the county and city level, if that goes through. So it'll qualify to meet the 2050 goals, which currently nuclear is not part of that. So both those they are pushing on. I'm sure most of you are aware, but the state's probably going to announce they're at a $1.2 billion deficit that they need to try to figure out how to fix. Originally, the Joint Budget Committee was saying that they could do it just by cutting basic positions that were unfilled. They're now talking about, and again, nothing has been announced, this is just what they had talked to us about, that having to cut 10 to 15% of the budget in each department. So we'll see what they come out with in the next few weeks after they figure out exactly how much they have. But that was kind of interesting. I went to the EDA conference, which it really had some, at least I went for the part of the day, it really had some interesting speakers, one of which was Deb. Deb and Georgina Raftopoulos gave an amazing presentation on ranching and agriculture in this community, stuff that I had never heard before, and I'm sure most people hadn't, and the possibilities of jobs and growth in this area through that, along with a bunch of other economic forecasts and people. So it was a great meeting. Had an RTA meeting where we talked about, they presented actual costs to each of the 8 priorities we're looking at, a low and a high, to give us an idea of what type of money we're needing to raise. We also talked about the IGA. I brought up a lot of the questions Peter had. Basically, we've changed it so Moffat County is going to be holding the election. And they also took off LMD as a restricted financing. So right now in the IGA, the only restricted financing will be property taxes. That will not be allowed on there. Everything else will be open to whatever any community involved wants. The final clean copy of the IGA will be presented to us a couple of days before our workshop. So I'll send that out as soon as I get it. And then at our workshop, we'll be talking about it. There's going to be a press release. Actually, there's been a press release. It went out Monday, talking about all the meetings and all the communities. There's going to be 2. Our first one is going to be March 25th. There'll be in Steamboat, in Routt County, in Oak Creek, and in Hayden. There'll be the first public meeting all in March. That's where we'll be going over the IGA and any questions, any problems anyone has with it. So that's when the public needs to comment, and we need to comment. And then they'll adjust the IGA based on those comments, and then do another presentation in April. And then the press releases are starting to already come, announcing that, and then other things going on with it. I had an Innovation Center Executive Committee meeting yesterday, which is basically going on preparing for our meeting about the bell tower on Friday. And then this afternoon, I had a Mountain Rail presentation by CDOT, where they had OEDIT and DOLA and the governor's office all presenting various grant possibilities for station redevelopment in those areas. So that's it.
Great, all right. And I attended the special council meeting and then also attended the meeting with Melanie regarding the water park and the updates on that and the Woodbury Park. So those were the only 2 things that I had. Okay, now we will move on to public comment. So each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may not cede their time to another speaker. So we invite anyone to come up, and you're welcome to speak to council about something that's on the agenda or something else out in the community that you're concerned about or have interest about. We obviously can't engage and answer questions during that public comment time, but if there are questions that need to be answered, then we can direct staff to get with you and get those questions answered. So I will go ahead and open it up for public comment. Don't all come at once.
If no one has public comment, I just want to thank Ken for being back here.
Yeah.
He was here for years, and it's really good to see your face.
I will make a comment.
Good, we're glad, it's nice to see you.
Since you picked me up. I'm Ken Morgan. I live at 718 Yampa. And I've been enjoying the weather and would hope everybody gets out and enjoys the nice weather. And enjoy Craig. That takes a little bit of work on all of our parts because we need to start cleaning it up for those coming to see our great little town. And it's good to get out there, even though I'm quite handicapped now. I worked most of the day raking my front lawn, and it's a little wet, but you know, make it look good for us first and for people coming to see us. Thank you. Thanks for mentioning.
Okay, anyone else have anything for our public comment this evening? And I'm assuming we don't have anyone online. Okay. All right, we will move on. Number 7, public hearing. So I will go ahead and open the meeting for public hearing. I will go ahead and let Mindy kind of discuss a little bit ordinance number 1163, 2025. It is a supplemental appropriation ordinance to carry over budgeted 2024 projects of commitments not accomplished in 2024 into the 2025 budget. So Mindy, do you have any additional information you want to share with us?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. So this was presented for first reading and introduction at the February 25th meeting. There's been no changes since it was first introduced. The basic recap on it, we went through with department heads to identify capital projects of where they stood and which ones would need to be carried over. The net increase to the general fund would be $333,377. In the water fund, $1,037,437. Wastewater fund, $238,833. And the Craig Housing Authority, $344,379.
Okay, does council have any questions for Mindy about any of those items? No. Okay, I will go ahead and invite the public to come forward. This is your opportunity to speak either in favor or against this ordinance number 1163. Do you have any public comment? Okay, I will go ahead and close public comment for ordinance number 1163, 2025. And next item under public hearing 7B, we have ordinance number 1164, 2025, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Craig, Colorado, amending a portion of Chapter 3.16 of the Craig Municipal Code concerning sales tax to change reporting period threshold amounts. So Mindy, I think that's you again.
It is me again. Good evening again. So ordinance number 1164 was also presented at the February 25th council meeting. There's been no changes since it was originally introduced. This basically is amending our sales tax code due to House Bill 24-1041. So we're matching ours up to what the state is mandating as far as filing periods. It's not changing sales tax rates or anything. It's just aligning with filing periods based on sales. If they're $15 or less per month, filers may now file their tax annually, and if their tax is less than $600 per month, they may file the returns quarterly, and for a taxpayer whose monthly tax is $600 or more, they must file monthly.
Okay, any questions from council members for Mindy regarding that ordinance? Okay, I would invite any members of the public to come forward regarding this ordinance, and you can speak for or against this item. Okay, I will go ahead and close public hearing for ordinance number 1164, 2025. So moving on to other business, number 8A. Waste and Wastewater Director Carl Ray to present for the approval of the award for the bid raw water control valve to Anson Excavating and Pipe in the amount of $239,700. Carl.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to recap, a raw water control valve was proposed as a solution to a condition we observed last year. So the Yampa River Corridor project replaced the original water diversion with 3 in-stream features that offer recreational amenities. And those features are higher in vertical elevation, and so in late summer and early fall, It is a benefit for the water treatment plant to have more water available at our water intake. However, during runoff, we have much more water than we can handle, and that presents problems at the plant with pumps running off their operational curve, localized flooding, and things like that. So I've kind of talked about that with council before. We asked for an appropriation for $270,020 in November to address that issue. We looked at various ways of controlling that raw water, and our engineering team and myself and other folks involved with the river project all discussed it, and looked like the best solution was to put in a raw water control valve at the water plant. So you may recall I mentioned that we were going to seek DOLA EIAF funding for half of that estimated cost. We were unsuccessful in getting 100%, 50% of it for the match, but we were able to get $50,000, so that does help in the project. And we received the contract on Friday with DOLA. So we put the project out to bid. It was designed, put out to bid, published starting on February 17th, and we had a pre-bid meeting to clear up any concerns, and issued addenda regarding any questions that were posed during that pre-bid and afterwards. So the bids were opened on March 5th at 2 o'clock. We received 3 bids, one from Xfield Services, one from Phones Construction, and one from Anson Excavating. Anson Excavating was the low bidder in the amount of $239,700. Our recommendation, both internally and with our engineers, with SGM, is to award the bid to Anson Excavating and Pipe.
Are there any other questions for Carl? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the award of the raw water control valve to Anson Excavating and Pipe in the amount of $239,700.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Looper. We have a second from Councilman Jackson to approve the bid for Anson Excavating and Pipe in the amount of $239,700 for the raw water control valve. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Letter B, Finance Director Mindy Elliott to present for second reading ordinance number 1163, 2025, a supplemental appropriation ordinance to carry over budgeted 2024 projects of commitments not accomplished in 2024 into the 2025 budget.
Good evening again. Ordinance number 1163 is the carryover from 2024 to 2025. There's been no changes since originally presented.
Okay, any questions? Any other questions for Mindy? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance number 1163, 2025.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion from Councilwoman Gotchel. We have a second from Councilman Luker. Luker. Sorry, Luke. Are there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Letter C, Finance Director Mindy Elliott to present for second reading ordinance number 1164, 2025, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Craig, Colorado, amending a portion of Chapter 3.16 of the Craig Municipal Code concerning sales tax to change reporting period threshold amounts.
Good evening again. Ordinance number 1164. We're aligning the city code chapter 3.16 to match Colorado House Bill 24-1041 regarding reporting periods. Nothing changing sales tax, just the reporting thresholds. And there's been no changes since originally presented.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 1164, second reading,
Second.
2025.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion from Councilman Jackson and a second from Councilman Looper to approve on second reading ordinance number 1164, 2025. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Letter D, City Attorney Heather Cannon to present for approval the Craig Moffett County Airport Intergovernmental Agreement.
Good evening. The IGA is an updated IGA that we've been entering into every 5 years with the county. There were some revisions to the previous IGA definition of who owns and manages the airport, which is the county. And then just some clarification for council as well in the attempt to treat the budget for the airport as we treat other departments within the city that we budget for every year, and effectively giving council the power to know what is going to be spent and to budget for that in each budget year. So before, we had an agreement with the county that we were cost sharing. This effectively states that the city will agree to share in those costs, but those costs will be defined for council to be able to approve in the budgetary year by November 1st. So those were the clarifications that we have made to clean up the IGA from about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, I think
I have a
Councilman
bunch of
Looper had
questions.
several questions.
For it.
First of all, B, airport is owned by Moffett County versus splitting between the two of us. Why?
So that's an interesting question. Going through the history, there's a long history of a question as to whether or not the city owned the airport at one time, then the county took it over, purchase of the land. There's a few deeds that need to be clarified. My understanding as of now is that the city and the county own parcels of land where the airport is and immediately next to the airport. The reality is the county is the exclusive entity who has for years made all of the decisions with regard to what happens out at the airport, and this is applying for grants. I think they were the primary person who applied for the large grant that we received from the federal government within the last year, to approving leases, what is built out at the county, and they're basically managing the airport. It didn't make sense so the way that the original IGA was sent over, it was sent over as the city and the county jointly owned the airport, but the county was effectively making all of the decisions. It doesn't really make sense for the city. So if the county is going to be making all of the decisions, it makes sense that the county owns the airport, and then they also carry the insurance to basically protect them or insulate them from liability that may or may not happen from the decisions running the airport out there.
Okay, so if we give up, my questions and concerns with that is, and I understand what you're saying, but if we're giving up the 50% ownership, then before I sign this, don't we have to change the deed?
So I don't think we ever had 50% ownership. So there's a difference in ownership of land versus ownership of the airport, right?
Okay.
The airport is an operating business. Structures of the airport are different than owning the land. So no, I don't know that we're giving that up because I can't seem to locate anything that the county ever owned or the city ever owned the airport with the county.
So the deed that says 50% county, 50% city is what? Isn't that the land?
So it does and it doesn't. And so historically, my understanding, and Peter can correct me if I'm wrong, is the understanding was that the city owned the land, I think, that is basically abutting the runway, the end of the runway. And the deed, I think, that came from, 1980? It was in the 80s, I believe, is very poorly written. And I think there needs to be some cleanup on that deed. But it doesn't, I think owning the land versus owning the airport, in my opinion, it's two
different
different,
things.
correct.
Okay. And then going on with that, if we are letting them own it and do whatever, why are we paying them anything? If I'm going to let them have it, I'm going to let them have it. I don't want to pay anything.
Well, I think that's a decision maybe for Peter to jump in, but realistically, this is a service that they hope would benefit the city as much as the county. And so we've historically always contributed to that cost. And it's always been my understanding, you know, the same agreement, that the county was primarily making the decisions for operation and management of the airport, and the city has historically helped to fund the expenses associated with the airport.
So then going back to your other thing, why don't we keep a portion of the airport as the way it is and say we need to be part of the process of any decision made there?
I think that's a discussion potentially for joint services.
Okay.
And I'm happy to have that discussion with you outside of the meeting, but I think that's probably a good discussion for joint services, talking about the potential liabilities with regard to airport, whether or not we want to incur that additional expense through CIRSA. Right now, part of getting the IGA ready was having it submitted to CIRSA and evaluating the insurance the county carries with the airport, and CIRSA was comfortable with the county, essentially their coverage, and that they are covering the airport because they're making all of the decisions.
And then another thing, because Melody had sent over two questions. One, we need to change, because Melody Villar's the chair, not Tony Boyer. And then two, she was wondering, the hold harmless, it currently just has that the airport and hold the city harmless, but before she said it had both the city and the county had held harmless?
Well, we're not making any decisions out there. So what are we going to hold the county harmless from?
Okay. That's
So
what I thought, but I, as a lawyer, I had no idea, so.
Well, and here's the thing. I know that, you know, maybe Ms. Villard or other commissioners, my understanding with Mr. Boyer, he was fine with it. I don't know Donald's position. May or may not have been happy with some of the changes, but my job is to represent the city, not necessarily to,
Yeah.
you know, make things
She just-
copacetic
yeah,
with.
She was just wanting me to ask, so I asked that. And then the only other thing I had is on, when you're looking at the now therefore 1, 2, 3, it then says number 5 for the creation of the Airport Advisory Board instead of 4. And it says number 4 for duties of the advisory board instead of 5.
So a typo.
And then 6, yeah, just typo. 6 for, so typo wise, we just need to change that. We need to change Tony to Melody.
And I think when this was drafted, Tony was still out there. We had been in a hold pattern waiting for the county to give us what coverage they had for insurance to see if we needed to be added as an additional insured, and then waited for CIRSA to get back to us. And so those changes with regard to Tony and Melody probably happened while we were in that holding period.
She was
for a
just
couple of
appointed
months.
January 1st,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
We
That's
can
it.
definitely make those changes. Happy to have the discussions though with you. I think that those are all great questions, but the reality is the city is not making decisions, operational decisions out there that we would be holding anybody harmless. We're just basically contributing to
Without
the-
any say.
the bill, right? Well, now you do have say, because, now the city has to agree to the expenses they're going to share out there in rating before November 1st of every year. And then council members approve that, as they do with all of the other departments within the city. So even though it's not a department, if you're going to be approving costs, you should be aware of what those costs are.
Okay, that's all I had.
And then under number 3, I was going to ask Heather, so it says the county will submit expense and revenue reports to the city on a monthly basis. Is that something that currently happens?
They submit their invoices with detail for payment.
Each month?
Each month.
Okay,
Each month,
yeah.
okay. And then quarterly for our share of the agreed upon operating expenses and personnel expenses. And And then did we, I mean, really, we don't see anything else from them until closer to budget time, right? And then they kind of typically have come to the meeting at some point and just kind of said, hey, this is kind of the budget for the year. So other than that, we only will see something annually from them.
So I think this is kind of the first year that this has been structured this way.
Okay.
So I believe that's how that should happen in advance, so that you guys can have that information when you're having those budget meetings, before you approve it in November.
Are there other questions for Heather?
Has the county approved this yet? Do we know?
In my discussions with Mr. Roden and Mr. Brewer, it seemed to be approved. I have not heard that it's not been. Ms. Miller asked for us to send it over. Was that this week, Katie, or last week? I think last week, and we never had a response as to any requested changes or anything of that nature. But Mr. Roden and I had, I think, tied up all the loose ends well over, several weeks ago. We were just waiting on the insurance questions.
Okay, so do you need anything further from us then? Obviously, that was just presentation, so once we have the actual IGA, or are we approving it? Or
No,
what-
you'll vote to approve. We'll make the
those
typo
changes.
corrections. I don't know that that is an amendment. Otherwise, I think you just vote to approve on the IGA.
Okay. Okay, so no further questions? Okay, so we will move on to item number E,
But
so.
You need a
I
motion.
will ask
You
you
still need a
to-
motion on it.
Sorry, I was thinking that was.
Or a die for lack of motion, one or the
Okay.
other.
Okay, sorry, I was thinking that was what E was doing, and I didn't look at that. Okay, so, what is council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the Craig Moffett County Airport Intergovernmental Agreement.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Jackson, a second from Councilman Tucker, to approve the IGA as presented. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Passes?
And
Okay.
Councilmember Luber, I do want to, if I wasn't clear, I do believe the deed that we have shows that we own 50% of the property, the airport property. I'm just saying historically, the understanding was where it was located with regard to what we own, but I believe there's a difference, if I wasn't clear, in owning the property versus owning the airport.
Or in the airport is one versus the other. And, well, and that's, again, just something, and we can talk more later, is moving forward, do we just not, why do we own it? Why not change the deed? If we're gonna pull out of it
All the
totally.
land, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's just something to talk about.
Okay, so potential discussion for the Joint Services Committee, it sounds like maybe? Okay, so letter E, moving on, City Attorney Heather Cannon to present, introduction and first reading, ordinance number 1165, 2025, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Craig, Colorado, amending section 2.12.320 to the Craig Municipal Code concerning the collection of unpaid municipal court fines and costs.
Thank you. So if you review the additions in the packet, this essentially adds a provision that allows for us to submit unpaid costs that we're not successful on collecting to a collection agency. And so we're just asking to add that to the code as a collection option because it's been difficult to always collect. I think that Ms. Emmerman has done an excellent job collecting where she can, but sometimes you're just unable to locate folks that owe money, and so this gives us the ability to turn those unpaid costs and fines over to a collection company.
I do have one question, and I've just seen this kind of out there, again, on social media, so I don't know how factual it is, but I've seen that it says that basically if you have debt that's been turned over to a credit and collection company without your approval of that they basically can't collect on that debt, that you can just call them and say you don't have responsibility to that. I have no idea if there's any truth behind that, but I was thinking, if that is the case, would we have them sign something at the time, or
So they sign authorizations with regard to being responsible to pay us. I don't know that I've ever, with regard to a court fine and cost, been aware that, court agency or judicial agency is not allowed to turn things over to collection without approval from the defendant. I can look into that, but that's not my understanding.
From previous life with credit card companies, that's true.
Okay.
We still collected and we still harassed, but legally, no, they could say it wasn't my approval, so we couldn't. So
Okay.
I doubt it would apply to the city or courts, but yeah, with credit cards, it does.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Go
Make a
ahead.
motion to approve ordinance number 1165, 2025.
Second.
Okay, so we have Councilman Tucker has made a motion to approve ordinance number 1165, 2025. A second by Councilman Looper. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, letter F. Peter is actually going to give us that presentation for the approval of the purchase of the Special Response Team Tactical Plate Carries from Point Blank Enterprise in the amount of $19,232.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mike is the chief is pretty well, so explained this pretty well in his email or his letter here. But the ballistic panels and the carriers that hold those, the panels themselves have an expiration date on them. They're like a freshness date. And they've expired at this point, and so it's necessary to replace those plates. Some are rifle plates and then back plates. The bid came in from a state bid, so they only have a sole source bid on 3 different options that were presented by the state. And they were $286 over budget with this particular quote that they got from the state bid. So the police department and Chief Cochran are asking for approval to go ahead with the purchase of those tactical plates, ballistic plates and the carriers for, $19,232.
He was what, $200 over budget? Is what it was?
Right. And this is for 7 police officers as part of the special response team. That's part of, that's not the whole team, but that's our contribution to the team.
Okay, what's council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of tactical plate carriers from Point Blank Enterprises in the amount of $19,232.
Second.
Oh, sorry, Jesse. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Looper, a second from Councilwoman Gottschall to approve the purchase of the Special Response Team Tactical Plate Carriers from Point Blank Enterprises in the amount of $19,232. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Letter G, Randy, do you have that paper with that language?
I
in
do. Let me find it.
there? Okay, and then we added item
Yeah.
G on there.
It's the letter, but there's language that, oh, there it is, okay. So, an action to consider and approve a letter of support for the U.S. Department of Transportation's Rural and Tribal Assistant Pilot Program Grant in the amount of $700,000 for the purpose of master planning for commuter rail stations from Oak Creek to Craig. Grant has no match. Routt County is no grant administrator, and this is a letter of support. I received an email from Sonia Macy's, Routt County Commissioner, that they are applying for this grant. And it's due Friday. The grant basically will give the county monies for planning around the stations. And what they want to do is create a master plan and submit those, move those monies down to Craig, Oak Creek, Hayden, Steamboat, Yampa, where the stations are being built, to use the plan as to what you want around the stations and what's involved with it. And so she's looking for a letter of support, and Peter was able to get that to us tonight. So any questions on it?
Everyone had a chance to look over the letter? Okay. So any questions? Okay, what is council's pleasure?
I move to approve the letter of support for the U.S. Department of Transportation. Something. What else do you want me to say, Randy?
Sorry.
Is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we got it.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion from Councilwoman Gottschall, a second from Councilman Jackson to approve the letter of support. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, number 9, under discussions, we don't have anything listed. Our staff report under number 10, of course, was taken off the agenda. We'll move that to next meeting. So are there any further closing remarks or informational items? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Meeting is adjourned.